Mike and Mine podcast. Anybody stressed out, by the way? Because this is the podcast for you. I'm Hudson Hott, Scotty Blaisdell, Alan Wagner, our resident LMFT. I thought, today we should talk about some stressful situations because I believe that all of us go through them on the daily, but some more than others when you're doing a home reno, right? Scotty, I know you're doing one right now.
Yeah, we just went through one. Yeah, no fun, no fun. We'll get
And
into
we're
that.
doing and we're doing the same, right, Alan? We're putting the pool in and talk about stressful, arranging this sucker, watching it going over the house. I mean,
That was
anxiety.
a great video, by the way. The crane literally carrying a fiberglass pool over her house. I know your neighbors were probably videoing, hoping to get a blooper of the thing falling.
So yeah, now I can laugh about it, but that's one of the things that we were all laughing about. And they were like, "Hey, you ever see one of those go through a house?" I'm like, "Why would you say that to me?" We're watching it dangle and the wind is blowing, but it
Yeah.
is also stressful. And Alan, I'm sure you've got clients that you're dealing with too that are doing home renos or birthday parties.
Yeah,
Because
what are the big stressors
what are the
people are
big
dealing
ones?
with?
I think the biggest stressors that I end up seeing that can take two people that are happily married or happily in a relationship and really put them at odds is living through a home construction, living through a move,
Yep.
going through a wedding for sure. And I've seen them, and believe it or not, throwing a toddler birthday party, like the pressure of a new mom, or a new dad wanting to impress all of these other people, their family, their friends of a 1 or 2 year old. You see that a lot too.
That's
I'm,
funny. I remember I was supposed to MC a wedding one time, and most times when you MC a wedding, you meet ahead of time and you have this conversation and they talk about their love for one another. This one was all about logistics. It was all about what it was going to look like, and I just had a weird feeling about it. So the father gave me the check, the father of the bride. 2 days before the wedding, the wedding planner says, "Hold on, we may have a problem." And then the day before the wedding's off. So whatever happened in the process of
what?
preparing for this wedding, they as a couple were not ready for it.
They needed Alan. Where was Alan at that time? You could have passed his card out. Wow. Alan, have you ever experienced that?
Well, I mean, look, I've seen weddings just disappear because of COVID, but what you're talking about, Scotty, is a stress cancellation probably. And no, exactly. That's what we're talking about today is when you're dealing with these types of projects that we just brought up before, you're dealing with not just people, that can also make mistakes. They're not machines. It's not AI. Like they're human beings. They can have other things that get canceled or replace things, and they can forget things and they can double book. But you're dealing with a lot of subcontractors, and they're people that are reliant on each other. It's like a hurdle race. This person can't start till that person gets this, and you can't to get the birthday cake until the birthday entertainment comes, or each thing is reliant upon the next. And in life, as we all know, on a road trip, and we've talked about that before, you can't predict what will happen next. There's so many things, but as a couple, hopefully you're listening to a podcast like this and understanding these are normal things. So be prepared for the unexpected. Understand that you're not against each other in scorekeeping, but a lot of times you see stuff like that.
Oh yeah, because it's like I'm going to blame this one because I thought we should have hired this contractor, and now look at where we are. They're not showing up for days, and it's your fault. And blah blah blah. Blah. My guy would have been here. Look, he's already worked. Yeah, all that, and that puts so much pressure.
And there's a lot
Well,
of
I think
so I'm
I
sorry.
was going to say, I think the part of it is just feeling out of control. We like to have our lives in a certain amount of control. And in situations like this, you're reliant upon people. It's not you.
Yeah.
And so you're spinning plates, the old circus act, and you're trying to
Right.
keep them all spinning at the same time. And some of us handle that unknown and how are we going to get through this better than others.
Alan, do men handle it better than women? Because I'm horrible. I will have a meltdown. I mean, really,
Well,
I have complete.
I think sometimes, and I don't, not to generalize, obviously, anytime,
Yeah.
but women do tend to care a lot more about appearances. I just remember even just like having a friend come over, like without the place being fully cleaned or something like that. Like you can get into an argument with your wife. It's like, what, you just let them come over like that? And there's laundry sitting here. And so
Right.
I think women do care a lot more about what things look like, but you're talking about a lot of money too. So there's the financial factors of a wedding, which people probably know how much that would cost. in the hundreds of thousands sometimes. Same thing for people with these home renovations, same thing with a new home and moving. And so you're talking about so much money at stake. And I think that also puts an extra level of pressure. But I do think that women handle it differently than men in the sense that men kind of just are more pragmatic sometimes, and women get very emotional about the adjustments and adaptations that have to happen because it's not like their original vision.
I'm going to tell you a crazy first toddler birthday story, and it wasn't my kids, okay? I have a friend who is extraordinarily wealthy and in real estate. And this was her firstborn, and she was throwing this massive birthday party at this private estate. It was like a barn. They rented this barn. They installed for a 1 year old birthday party these gorgeous chandeliers from the beams. They brought electricians in. This is for a 1 year old birthday party, okay?
Mhm.
And you ready for this? This is the kicker. This is where it all went bad. They hired, I don't know if it was Bobby Flay or one of those guys, one of those kind of chef people. They hired him for the 1 year old birthday party. It's insane. I still can't wrap my brain around it.
So in that case, it sounds like they did the birthday party for themselves to
Oh,
Mhm.
look a
correct.
certain way and to be the kid having fun and having all the friends
The
over and
pony
all that.
rides, they had ponies and they brought in a giraffe and they brought a giraffe in. I mean,
Giraffe.
no, it was so next level. I don't think I've ever even seen celebrities pull this one off. But here's what happened. I guess the chef, the Bobby Flay chef or whatever, had to cancel because of COVID or something. It was something along those lines. And all hell broke loose because now the celebrity chef wasn't coming and it had to get canceled and she wasn't going to have it any longer. And they just spent all this money on all of these chandeliers, like I'm trying to explain to you, and the pets that they brought in. And they canceled it. They flat out canceled it. And it had to be over $100,000 for this. And that was it. I thought the marriage was over. They wound up redoing it a couple of months later when he was available. But like that was a real situation. And listening to that was mind blowing to me. Like that was the breakdown right there because of that.
I think people really do have, it goes back to some of the other subjects we talked about, which is how we're perceived by others. And when people have something at stake and the pressure, whether it's, parents throwing their children a big wedding, it's not always for the people getting married, it's for their friends. And so anybody who's been married understands sometimes that when you let the parents get involved, you lose control of your wedding. And that can easily become conflict in a couple, which is something I do in premarital counseling. But I think we all are very worried about outcomes. Like that's what you're talking about, Hudson. I've seen some crazy stuff in Los Angeles, like the bar mitzvahs. I remember going to this one place when I was looking for a DJ, and they had a kid coming out who's 13 years old on a motorcycle. They had like a light show going on. I know I've heard ones where they rented out Dodger Stadium. So
What?
people will
They
go
rented
all
Dodger Stadium?
Yes. Yes. So people will go all out if they have money sometimes because they want to look good. But even if you don't have that kind of money that we're talking about, you're still spending more than you probably have on these events. And the
Yeah.
goal of it is that you want your friends and family to come up to you and say, "Good job. You guys did great. You guys are a great couple." Isn't that always the goal at the end, whether it's the house renovation, the move? Wow, you guys did a great job. You guys are a great couple. So the pressure to get to that outcome when you can't control the people involved and the hurdles you have, to get through to get there, not easy.
It's funny, you something came up earlier and it reminded me going to a friend's house and seeing like clothes on the floor and things weren't cleaned up. And I thought, wow, I must be really good friends with them, because
Really? Is that what you thought? I'm
they're
a
not,
woman and I would be mortified if you came over and I had clothes piled up because I was
I
doing
know,
laundry
but
and Alan
but
let you in.
but how do you live in real life and do people ever really see it? So
No,
that's what I'm saying.
I think I've had that argument, and if you're a man or a woman listening to this, because I've dealt with this with women pretty much my whole life, that if I've ever lived with a woman and I've invited a friend over without telling her, I've always gotten quote unquote in trouble. But for whatever reason, I think the place looks great. You got little kids, there's going to be some toys out, maybe there'll be, some, it's never filthy, but it may not be
Right.
organized. It's just normal life. And men don't care. But women have this under this perception that the man is going to go tell his wife what a dirty house their friend has, and now it's going to get around that it's a bad wife or a bad mom or whatever it is. But men aren't like that, Scotty. Would you agree? Like, do you go home and like if you go to a friend's house, are you telling people like, oh, you should have seen to Angie like what his place looked like and those couch cushions?
Never. And there was a video, gosh, I can't remember all the details, but basically someone opens the door and the mother-in-law comes rushing in. And I mean, it's a parody thing. And
Yeah,
they
yeah,
go look at all the things that are wrong in the house. And because that's how a woman feels like it's going to be. It's
correct.
like,
It's 100, she's 100% right. I will tell you this, and Alan will attest to this. Anyone can walk into our home at any given moment because I have OCD. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning and I am prepared. And one thing that I've noticed since living here, okay, I get the pop-ins. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not used to it. I mean, but I'm always ready. I mean, honestly, just because of my OCD and I have to have everything perfect and neat and clean, and just that's just me. But if something was out, trust me, I would be thinking that somebody's judging me. And I would have to do an explanation like why, one chair it has a white slip cover on it and it doesn't match the rest. And I would feel the need to explain that when nobody's probably noticing that I'm washing that slip cover and why I have a temporary, but I would feel the need because I'm a woman and that's just how we
well,
are.
I mean, this is an example, Alan, of how you could be in the completely same situation as your significant other and feeling different stresses.
Oh yeah.
The guy's just happy to see the people and they're just bantering or whatever, and you're going all the flaws, all the flaws.
Yeah, because men we really don't notice. Like we always get in trouble for it, don't we, Scotty?
They
It's
are.
like, it's like you didn't notice I got a haircut or you don't notice this new dress I got. And we're very aloof a lot of the time. So when I go to a friend's house who has kids, especially when I had little kids, I'm assuming to walk into chaos. I'm assuming there'll be things on countertops, but not filth. There's no roaches running around. It's the chaos of living a family life of young children. And it's amazing how women, and Hudson is the first person I've ever met that when people come over, she wants to give them a tour of the entire house, where she's literally walking room by room. And I think anybody listening knows that when you have company come over, you'll clean the living room and the thing, but you know that the kids' rooms are going to be a little crazy. Maybe your bedroom has some stuff going on or whatever. But she literally goes room to room and shows them everything.
Our youngest one goes, whenever I say we have friends coming, he's like, oh, are we doing a tour?
Yep, it's true. So,
Yeah.
but
It's
it,
really
but
true. Scotty, I think you even know that when you've come over to my homes, because Scotty has been
Oh
to
yeah.
numerous homes I've owned, right?
Yeah.
Did I
Yeah.
give you a tour?
I know the whole house.
So when you put down how much we care about what other people think, and then we go back to those topics like moving and weddings and things like that, you see that the pressure that people are putting on themselves, and I always kind of talk about that fight or flight response on a scale of 1 to 10. It's when people hit 7 of anxiety, they become aggressive. And that's when at that point, your empathy is gone for your partner or your friend or whoever's in the room with you, your mom, if it's bridezilla wedding time, whoever's in the room with you, you don't love them. You are a victim of them in that moment. And
Mm.
so it takes a lot of, I guess, control and understanding of listening to a podcast like this to understand this will happen to you. Chaos will happen during these events. You cannot control every aspect of things that have multiple people involved. But will you take it out on each other in your anxiety, or will you understand there will be anxiety and what are you going to do about it when it happens?
One of the things that my wife and I have done, I I feel is very important because I can seethe on the inside and not show it on the outside.
Mhm.
And I am then vulnerable to just a blow up. And so sometimes I will diffuse it by just saying, I am really irritated today. I go, it's nothing you did. I'm just feeling prickly.
That
I'm
was
feeling prickly. That's a good one,
Oh my
Scotty.
God. That was me last Friday. I do that with Hudson too. There's times where it's like whoever's going to be in front of me, I'm going to start slugging. And it's not that they're doing anything truly deservedly wrong that they deserve to be slugged by me, but sometimes we hit that point, like you're saying, we're seething. And it's like it could be our kid in front of us, it could be our best friend in front of us, it could be our partner. We just want to protect everybody from us.
Yes,
Literally,
exactly.
I'm
Put the
looking for
chains on
Alan.
me. Put the chains on me before the full moon comes out and I turn into a werewolf.
Oh yeah.
That's-
No, but see, Alan knows how to regulate himself, because obviously he's a therapist and he knows, and he's also gone to therapy. Like the other day when I mean, we have all this construction stuff. We have so many things going on. I can't find Alan. Where is he? He's laying down in his car with the AC blowing. What are you doing? He's like, I just need to have a quiet space. I just need some self-care. And I said, okay. And I looked at him and he reversed back down into the seat and he just sat there. And then about 10 minutes later, boom, here comes Alan. Okay. And then we wound up going out for Chinese.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, you know what you need. Sometimes it's like, I need to go take a walk. I need to be in nature for a minute. I need to let go. And if you can do that and not take it out on the people around you, then I think that's when you're
And the
maturing
people
in your
you love.
relationship. You're maturing in your relationship.
Yeah. But maybe, Alan, that's where something you can explain to somebody who maybe doesn't do that. Like, you know your threshold and you know that you become a nasty individual and that you go and you take care of that by yourself. Scotty, you get prickly. Me, I get silent. I don't talk. I can't talk. I
Well,
cannot talk at all.
you always hear about that expression that men go into their caves. I think people might, when they're listening, hear that. And I think Scott, it's interesting, Scotty, that you said that because you sound like me in that same regard, is that it's how we communicate to our partners when we're not us. And when we know that we're feeling prickly. And I think I was telling her, like, my skin is crawling at this point and I'm just infuriated. And at that point, it was like whatever was in front of me, somebody could call and tell me some like remotely, not even really bad news, and I would just take it out on them. I could be on the phone with a company just yelling at the person and go upgrading to their manager. You have to know, when do I need to get away from people I love? Because we all hit a threshold when we're out of control. And I think that's the hard part of life, is not being in control of what other people are doing.
You mentioned other stressors, and we had that home renovation going on. And it was a home renovation because of a flood that happened
Mhm.
in our upstairs bathroom. So it destroyed the flooring, did stuff to our ceiling downstairs, etc. So the first thing that happens is they bring the mitigation people out and they just stop the water, make sure it's not going to get any worse,
Mhm.
and then they disappear.
Yep.
And then you live that way for a very long time before insurance and people that are the contractors and all that get things together. So for months, we had holes in our ceiling and things we were walking around, just that dust would fall. And it
I,
just felt like we weren't home.
Mhm.
We weren't really living like we normally would. And we couldn't have the people over and you couldn't I don't know. It really hurt us, I think, in our attitude. And I think it made us prickly, you
yeah,
know, just because you're
obviously.
out of sorts.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize about, for everything that you're doing, if you're doing a wedding, you have a wedding planner, you have photographers, you have entertainment, DJ or band, you've got people who handle all of the food, so there's so many people who handle the dessert, sometimes a separate one. And then the people who are going to work the event. And so, and then the event rental itself and making sure that that doesn't get double booked or doesn't fall through. So you're dealing with at least, let's say, 10 different possibilities of something crashing. And you've got parents involved sometimes. You've got other people involved watching you and judging you, or at least you perceive that they are. And I think that's the hard part, is going into those types of things like you're saying about a home construction. I think if you're doing a kitchen, let's say, for example, you forget there's a different person who does the wood cabinetry than who's going to do the slab of your countertop, and a different person who's going to do the plumbing, and a different person who's going to do the electric and handle all of the wiring for the appliances. So even a kitchen remodel may have 5 or 6 different contractors too. So as a couple, it's communication, like what you said, telling Angie that you're prickly, or me telling Hudson, I need self-care to go sit in my car in the air conditioning by myself and lie down and literally just breathe so that I don't hurt anybody. Not physically, but you know what I mean? Don't just escalate problems
Verbally, mentally, yeah.
mentally. And I think that's the hard part about life, isn't it? That, when you're a couple, you want to put your best foot forward, but when you do big things, like, there's too many people involved and you have to expect that one thing's going to go wrong. And if it does, you got to remember you're on the same team. And how are you going to tell your partner you're not you, so that it doesn't become combative and blaming?
Now, were you both able to do that, Scotty? I mean, did you both tell each other you were feeling prickly?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it took a while to figure that out, to be honest, because it just felt weird. You just feel weird. Like you don't know. I'm not angry. I'm just like I'm not comfortable.
Right.
So sometimes we don't know. I don't know what to say, or she doesn't know what to say. Finally, I'll put my words together and my thoughts together, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm just feeling out of sorts because we're not really home right now, the
Mhm.
home that we expect to be in.
Yeah.
So we decided, and this was our fix for it. It's like, well, let's think of what else we want to do while we're redoing stuff. And then it became a fun thing where we're like, they're going to replace the floor. Let's get a different flooring. Let's do this differently. Let's change this bathroom. And so we turned it into a reno as we were doing the reconstruction.
And
And it was a lot more fun. Then we were coming up with ideas together instead of just
right. You were
when are
having
they
more
going to
fun.
fix
You were
it?
being creative together and
Yeah.
building something. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great way to turn it into, you know what I mean? Where you get involved. But I mean, it could also go the other way because once you start more projects with this open reno, and you both are very lucky that it worked out, and you're very happy. But it could have gone the other way if you could imagine
Mm.
something bad could have happened. You know what I mean? One guy doesn't finish the job. And here you are with, more openness. Nobody's showing up for dates because that happens on the regular in construction.
Yeah.
I always look at people's intention. And I think for me, I used to tell people with weddings, sometimes the day after your wedding is the best day of your life because most people don't even get to eat the food at their own wedding. They don't get to, there's just too much chaos going on and making sure they talk to every guest and that people are happy where they sat and all the fights that went on in the setup of it. You're just so happy it's over. And now you can like live your life. And I think I wish more couples could see the after effects of what it's going to be like. I used to call it the good enough. And I don't know if you guys are like this, but when I go to a birthday party or I used to, at like a Chuck E. Cheese or one of those kind of kid places when my kids were little, I always went up to the dad and the mom and I told them what a great job they did. Even if it wasn't perfect and they're like, no, but the pizza came late and this didn't work. I'm like, you guys did awesome. And they always say thank you. And I've always said that to people at weddings. And when I always say that to people at constructions, and they're like, no, but we didn't get to use this wood and it came out the wrong way and the flooring should have been this. And you're like, no, it looks incredible. Because there's the good enough. And I always feel like people are trying to just get that pat on the head that says you did a good job and they're so nervous all the time. And it will never come out like we imagine it in anything, I think, in life. We always shoot for the good enough, and hopefully we get a lot of things right. And I think if we could all be better about telling our friends and family sometimes on these types of things, they did a great job. So maybe it was a
Mhm.
little stressful, but that's normal that they were at each other's throats during the boxing or, this place ran out or they didn't have the truck. Those things happen to all of us.
I think one of the great things when people have left, we had a bunch of people over for dinner, and someone will comment like that because then later on, I will be able to say, I'll say to my wife, well, it seemed like everybody had a good time,
Yep.
and to me, that made it all worth it, like it wasn't in vain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm going to give you an example. Alan had his 50th birthday 2 years ago, and I wanted to do something really cool. And so
1 year ago.
1 year ago, yeah, 'cause he's 51.
Hey,
So
don't age me, babe.
no, I'm not. But for his 50th, okay, I'm not
She
trying to age
counts
you.
can she does the conception, not the actual birth.
Right. In
Yes,
my mind,
exactly.
because it was 2 years ago in my mind that
Well,
I did it.
count year
But
zero.
so I wanted like all his closest friends to come and do a surprise birthday party for him, right? And so I hired this taquito truck because they make the most insane taquitos I've ever had. And I love them and I brought them home and I remember Alan liked them and they do like these like fried donuts and they do it all. And so I rented this truck. And so I was so excited, right? And come to what happened is it was pouring rain out and I had everything set up for an outdoor party. So, and it just boom. And it doesn't often rain in LA. I mean, and it just came down and it wasn't stopping. So everything had to change. And I had to have everything indoors. I had to bring in all the alcohol. I did a whole landscaping thing. I was out there with my bare hands, putting in mulch, making it look extra. Like, and the taquitos were still good, But at that moment, you can't imagine the meltdown and the stress I was having, and again, worrying about, everybody, and yeah, it was just, but I did it, and it
But
came out.
what did Alan think?
Yeah, so what'd you think, Alan?
I say. So we have at our old house, we had a beautiful outdoor space. So I can understand what she was talking about and wanting to have it outside with all the people there and everything. And the rain really put a damper on that. And at the same time, everybody had such a great night. They all went up to her and told her that. I was so surprised. And, to have a 50th surprise party like that and to see so many people I love in one location and for her to have set all of that up. And everybody was impressed with what she did to set every little, whether it was secretly contacting guests, to the food, to the decorations, to everything, and the secrecy. And people just gave her lots of kudos, and I did too. And I think she was really hard on herself more than she had to be. And that's what I was saying before is sometimes people underestimate how great things are. And they want it to be a 10 and they forget that 9.5 is still so amazing. It's better than zero.
It reminds me of our topic, the spotlight effect, because you feel like people are judging every little detail
Yep.
of you and your life, but in fact, there's not. It's a small
Right.
percentage of people that will remember the details. But at the same time, I think we need to encourage so that the people who do feel that way can can get that affirmation that they're looking for. But at the same time, we need to get a hold of ourselves to not expect that everybody's judging us. So twofold, we can help and we can help ourselves as well by not over stressing about all those details.
And have some gratitude. I mean, if anyone's ever seen that video of those birthday parties where nobody shows up and the poor kid's sitting there alone with their cake, like if you can get guests for your kid's birthday party and you're driving home with a bunch of presents in the car and the kid's smiling and happy, you did a great job.
That's a win.
It's a
That is a
win. It's a win. Even if this person didn't show
win.
up, even if this thing was late, even if the pizza was cold, if the kid is happy and smiling at the end, it's a win because anybody who's ever thrown events like that or in any kind of situation, we know how hard it is if you're listening. And so I wish more people, like I said, accept the fact that your guests are happy that they got to all be together with you. They're not concerned with the things you're concerned about. And on a home renovation, at the very end of it all, no matter what happens, you live in a beautiful home and some people don't live in homes. Be grateful for what you have.
Yep.
I think that's an important part of life right there. I think an attitude of gratitude. You have to spend the time and effort each day to remind yourself of the things you do have, because so often we're looking at things we don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that makes you dissatisfied, but you don't really count your blessings. And I think that will help, an attitude of gratitude.
I totally agree.
I mean, like on the wedding front, I'm trying to think of some show we just watched, Hudson, where it's like the guy's sitting there and the girl didn't even show up. So it's
Yeah.
sort of like be happy that your spouse showed up at your wedding, despite everything
Well,
that
she
went
she
wrong on the
was
food.
2.5. Imagine this, okay? Poshy little wedding in like Napa Valley. She shows up 2.5 hours late. No phone call, won't pick up her phone because she's busy trying to get the dress on. 2.5 hours late in the sweltering sun in Napa Valley. Like these people were faces, all that melting their faces off. And so, yeah, it was
But
crazy.
but again, nothing goes perfect. I
Well, you
know.
know what, Alan? I know that we had talked about this briefly last time, but a lot also like when people are traveling and how you can change your mentality because it's really hard. I
Mhm.
know for myself personally, I have a difficult time. Like when I see black, it stays black. You know that about me, Alan. Am I right? I mean, it takes a lot. It takes a really good man to get me out of that. Thank God I have Alan. But like you put me in a comfort inn with the all you can eat inclusive breakfast. It comes up again. They need to be a sponsor of our show, by the way. Just and I'm not happy. How do you change that? How do you change that direction? Because people can stay in that zone, in the prickly zone for quite a while. I
It's,
know at least
I know
women do.
it's so funny. Like sometimes like you're on a road trip and it's like your partner wants to stop to get food or something, and you're like, no, it's too early. We'll get something later. And then as you drive, there's nothing coming up, or there's just crap coming up. And sometimes instead of just reframing it of like blaming the person, we should have stopped at Culver's back there, and now we're all screwed. embrace the fact that at 10 o'clock at night, everything's closed except for that Waffle House. I now know that I love Waffle House, and Hudson knows that too. So sometimes it's like happy accidents. It's like you end up in a place sometimes that you don't expect to be. It wasn't part of the plan, and yet at the same time you have fun being there. And I think that's something that we as adults need to be better at is adapting to our situations and finding the good.
Okay, so maybe you can give certain individuals, like men, for example, tips on how to change. How do you get somebody to pivot from that? You did you what we should have stopped. I mean, I'm starving. I haven't eaten all day. We've been driving, and they're right now. They're fuming. They're in the car.
Who's saying all this?
Let's just say the wife is saying it in the car.
Okay. All right. All
Okay.
right. Just say that. Okay.
The wife is saying it in the car because it was her idea. Let's just stop and get some food because I haven't eaten all day and I'm really hungry. No, no, let's just keep driving. We're going to keep going. And now, like Alan said, there is nothing for another hour. And she's like, nope, we've gone another 2 miles, still nothing. And you know that's happening. You know you've been in the car with that situation. So, how do you change the mood? Because now 2 hours later, you've found the Waffle House that you absolutely love. But how do you get her to change her attitude and get into that zone? Because that's a hard one and that's a real trick to do.
Well, look, not everybody's is travel worthy, and no, this is and what I say is this personality types, and maybe Scotty would agree with me on this one too. Yes, there's certain you. I think going into life, and maybe this is my age. I think I used to be a perfectionist when I was younger and want things to be a certain way and always expect it that way. And over time, I've realized that the house of cards usually falls and that you have to rebuild it, and it's not perfect and it tilts a little bit, and but it still stands tall in some ways. And I think over time, I've just started to accept that if I'm going to be with on a road trip, or a vacation, and Hudson and I have done them together, I always kind of prep my partner for the fact that we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we're going to have issues on a plane. We don't know if we're going to have issues with the car rental. We don't know if we're going to have issues at the hotel. We don't know if we're going to have issues anywhere. And the food may suck at the restaurant.
I think that's a good point. I think,
Yeah.
for anyone who's listening right now, I think, if you've encountered these situations before where things have come up and then there was the sourpuss mood for quite some time, to shorten that lengthy sourpuss mood. I mean, before you get on the road in that road trip or whatever it is that you're doing, talk about, okay, you never know what's going to happen. Let's
Yeah.
have an alternative and let's make the best of it just in case, because life is life and things happen. It's just like the pool. Couldn't get it in the
But
first time. They had to bring back a bigger crane to make it happen. And now it's in and I'm fine. But that lead up and the oh and the this. So I think that's a good thing to do is to prior to doing a trip.
Well, listen to
well,
this
it seems like we're
podcast.
talking about communication ultimately.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
all. Yeah, to your point, Scotty. Exactly. And I'll go back to like it's just listen to a podcast like this. Understand that these things will happen and it's not her fault or his. And like you said with communication, when you talk about the prickly thing, it's letting your partner know where you're at so that you don't just hit them and make it feel intentional.
okay. I really liked the specific that Hudson gave earlier. She's hungry. She says, let's stop. And then let's just say some guy named Alan says, well, let's go a little further. And then it ends up being an hour later. I think at some point, someone has to say, like Alan, for example, if it was somebody named that, would have to say, yeah, looks like I blew it.
Mhm.
Yeah, we probably should have stopped and
Right.
just take it, instead of, we're going to just get over it, that sort of
Right. No, that
force.
doesn't work. The get
Right.
over it thing, does not work for any woman. I can just tell you
Right.
that right now.
Well,
I
I
don't care who you are.
I think humility on both sides is very important, and you shouldn't hold, I
Yeah.
mean, everybody makes mistakes. As the woman,
Yeah.
then you need to be able to say, yeah, yeah, we probably did. I mean, yeah, yeah, we probably should have stopped, but that's fine. We'll find something. And you both help each other.
People above a seven say what they feel, not what they mean. And I think before you start talking when you're frustrated or upset or you feel like you are, you should know what your physiological symptoms of your fight or flight are. And at that point, you should understand that like you're not going to say it nicely verbally, you're not going to say it nicely in text, you're not going to write a nice email. Whatever you think you're going to say nicely, you won't. And I like what you're saying about the accountability. I think if you just own it and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. But the other person has to understand that before they start talking, just understand how they are at that moment and what they're coming across as. Are they accusing the other person of ruining their life in that moment? Because that's going to bring up a defensive response and it's going to turn it circular real fast.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Because
Yeah.
why did he do that? Was he just being selfish because he's not hungry? Why should we stop? Or was he just hopeful that "Well, we can go a little further and we'll find another place to eat? He was just thinking
Yeah.
that way. It could be innocent or it could be, selfish and who knows what was going on in his head.
At a seven, you'll assume he's selfish and he did it on purpose. You know what I
You
mean?
will. And even
Yeah.
if he wasn't, your mind is already in that place because you're so irritated, And I don't know about you, but I do know my thing is like I when I'm hungry and I get really, really hungry, I have to eat. Like there's no waiting. There is no waiting. I get nastier and nastier. And it doesn't matter. It's because I'm a real term that they use now. The kids use it. Scotty's called hangry.
Yeah. Well,
It's so true though.
keep some snacks in the car for those trips just to get you to where you can handle. And I think as well, what I've learned as the guy who's usually doing the driving,
Yeah.
from my experience as a kid, I remember needing to pee or needing or being hungry, and my parents seemed to never want to stop. And I don't want to do that. So my kids have learned that, hey, when we get a chance, could we get a bathroom? And then I'm like, can you hold it for half an hour? Yeah. And you have a little communication like that. Don't wait till it's an emergency. I gotta pee,
Right. No, that
or
again, communication, like you said.
Well,
yeah.
I think what you said too, also, Scotty, it's about matching it. It's like on the home improvement thing. If the plumber sucks and they did a bad job, and now you're delayed, or you don't have a working toilet, or the water shut off, if you can both acknowledge how upsetting it is together, then at least it's matching. If one person is upset and the other person's like, it's fine, we'll figure it out, and they're minimizing it, it's the fact that they're not matching that is escalating the other person. So I think sometimes we just have to feel that empathy that we're both in this together.
I love that. That's a
I
very
do
good
too.
way to think of it. My wife does a funny thing. I'll say, this da 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 da, and this bothers me, and and she'll go, "Aw," like that. Or if I get hurt, I'm like, "Oh," and she goes, "Is that?" I go, "Man, my arm hurt." Aw. And once she does that, we just kind of laugh.
And then
Like,
it's over. And then you move
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Now, that's
I
a good
don't
one. I
need
think to
any.
have something that makes your other one, your significant other, stop for a second and take a little giggle because it can absolutely go the other way, be like, oh, really? Again? Or blah, 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 blah. And so instead, you just have taken that pressure off. That's really cute, actually. Aw.
But,
Oh,
but last thing I'll say is it's just on the self-care front, me sitting in the car with the air conditioning, or Hudson knows sometimes I'll go into the room, put like weird music on and eye mask to just do sensory deprivation. It's like just knowing when you're not you in all of the situations we described and being able to communicate that to your partner. Not that it's an excuse, but it's better than you lashing out and them taking it as real. So just always have like some sort of self-care. Let your partner know what that is. And when you see that he or she is upset, let them have their thing. If Hudson is upset and she's hungry, what's going to make her feel better? Maybe it's not me picking at her and blaming her for being hungry. It's just like putting on a song, letting her sort of calm down, take some breaths, and she'll be fine by the time it gets to Waffle House.
yeah. And I think
Back at the Waffle House.
I think one of the things that, and I know we're about to wrap up here, but will happen is I know this about myself, if I'm frustrated and I don't even know why, just a bunch of stuff, and I'm looking for a reason to justify my frustration. So then I start to pick apart little things that really wouldn't cause all this,
Mhm.
but I put the blame on that person or that situation, when in fact, I'm just feeling this way. And if I just say I'm feeling this way and don't have to find a reason why, it actually helps the situation.
Mhm.
That's that. Yeah, I can totally see how that works for you.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say that women want to know why. You just know that, right? Okay, you can say that, but we're like in our mind because we've done a podcast about this. We're thinking there's more to it. We're playing detective because you guys are basic, but according to us, you are not. You are all masterminds and there's more going on.
Well, understand that we will eventually talk about it when we figure it out and
Right.
get our thoughts together, but we're not ready to have it forced out of us. So
Mhm.
just be patient and we'll eventually get there.
Yep. Now, this is some good information. I think this is a great podcast. And again, you know what? This is a podcast for anyone because we've all been moving, we've all been going on vacations, home improvements, anything of that sort. And to apply some of this is some great information. Alan, Scotty, honestly, I really, I think there's some good stuff in this. Again, I gotta do a first in story. April Wilson of Kaneohe, Hawaii, has been listening to the podcast ever since we launched it. She read our little article that came out in midweek. We got to give a shout out to midweek, and she saved it. And
Okay.
she said she would make a copy for us, which I loved. You're not on page 47 this time. But April Wilson, thank you so very much. And thanks for being a dedicated listener. You can find us on every platform, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. I mean, some of these weird platforms too. And I just saw that we were ranked number 4 for a search that was for mindfulness or something. And I thought that was really cool because we're a new podcast and I'm feeling pretty proud about that. Aren't you? You
Yeah,
guys?
that's nice. Thank you. Thank you for listening and thanks for subscribing.
That's right. I'm Hudson Hot, Scotty Blaisdell, Alan Wagner, or LMFT. We're Mike and Mind. Peace and chicken grease.
See ya.
Thanks, Chris.